Hey guys, in today's video I am going to be reviewing the new Colourpop No Filter Foundation. Now I picked up the lightest shade in the range, which is Fair 05, and I've been wearing it for around about a week now, so I'm going to be giving you my full review. We'll be doing a demo and I'll also have some swatch comparisons. So if this sounds good to you, then stay tuned to see if it is a winner in the affordable foundation category. Alright, let's start with some details. This foundation comes in a whopping 42 shades. Can we just give it up for Colourpop? Like, it is so great that brands are really expanding their foundation shade ranges. It's a step in the right direction and it's really good to see such an affordable brand be able to do this. So there are 6 shade categories and each category has 7 shades to choose from, all with varying undertones. I really love that they have categorized it like this because it makes it super helpful when you are trying to choose your shade. As I mentioned, I picked up the lightest shade in the range called Fair 05, and this one is described as a neutral foundation with subtle yellow undertones for very fair skin. I did also see that Colourpop made a comparison chart that they put on their Instagram comparing their shades to other popular foundations that are on the market. I can see where they were going with this. It was made to obviously make it easier to be able to choose your shade, but I think it overwhelmed a lot of people, including me, and I started to freak out thinking, oh my god, have I picked the right shade? On this chart, it said that Fair 05 was equivalent to Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Foundation in the shade 100. Now that shade is too light for me, and I don't think that the Colourpop foundation in 05 is an equivalent shade match to that. It is very light when you pump it out of the bottle, but it definitely dries down and does appear a smidge darker. So if you are looking at that chart, just take it with a grain of salt. So the foundation does come in a glass bottle with a pump, and the pump has this twist lock mechanism, which is really good if you're traveling because it doesn't have a cap. Unfortunately, this is the shittest pump I have ever used. It just gets stuck and it doesn't pump properly. It just squirts out little bits of product. It's not a full pump. Like, it isn't the end of the world, but it's definitely annoying. You get 25 mils of product in this bottle, which is a little less than regular foundations. You usually get 30 mils, and this one retails for $12 US. The formula itself is described as a full coverage natural matte foundation. It's oil-free, lightweight, and it also says you can customize the coverage. It's also cruelty-free and vegan. Now onto my thoughts about the foundation. Just for reference, I do have normal combination skin. I get a little oily through my T-zone, and I do have breakouts and pigmentation from my acne, but everywhere else it is relatively normal. Now I've been using this foundation for around a week now, and I do have a bit of a mixed review. As I mentioned, the color match is good for me as it dries down. I would definitely like to test out some other shades in the range just to get a feel for the different undertones, but this one works for me, so there's no rush to go out and buy different shades right now. As for application, I did prefer to apply this with a brush over a sponge. It is very buildable and it doesn't feel heavy or cakey at all when you're building it up, but I found it definitely built up better with a brush. When I applied it with the sponge, it did take away a lot of the coverage and actually looked quite patchy on my skin. If you watch a lot of my tutorials, then you would already know that I like to apply my foundation with a brush and then go over the top of it with a sponge just to get a nice flawless finish. So of course I did try this with the foundation, and I just had to go really lightly with the sponge because it was taking off the foundation. It was just making it look a little patchy and wasn't giving me that flawless finish that I usually achieve from that technique. But as I said, if I went in with a super light hand on the sponge, I got it to work. I also had a similar problem when I applied my concealer. When I was blending it out with the sponge, it was picking up the foundation along my cheekbone here. It was really strange because it didn't feel like the foundation had fully dried down and become tacky. So I'm not quite sure why it was actually picking up the foundation. So again, I just had to go in with a really light hand to blend out my concealer so that that didn't happen. When it comes to primers, I found my Stila One Step Correct worked best. This is a water-based foundation, so a water-based primer is what you're going to want to go for. Back to the coverage, and as I said before, it is very buildable, and you will see in my demo later how it builds up. Now, it doesn't give total coverage like the Marc Jacobs Remarkable Foundation, but it builds up to a high, medium, full. As you can see now, I've got some pigmentation here that I can see through the foundation, and also my chin here, I've got some pimples that I can still see. But overall, I think they nailed it by describing it as customizable coverage. I'm still trying to work out how many pumps I need to get the coverage that I like. It is hard because the pump doesn't work properly. I just get these half-assed pumps. So on average, I'd probably say maybe 4 to 5 to get this kind of coverage. And even with that many pumps, it doesn't feel heavy on the skin. It's super lightweight, and I love that in a foundation. Onto the wear time, and it lasted well on me. I'd say around 8 hours before I thought I maybe needed a little touch up. But I think that is pretty good for an everyday foundation. This foundation actually wore really, really well around my nose. That is usually the first place my foundation starts to fade and break up. But this lasted really well and didn't go patchy after a few hours like most foundations do around my nose. I also think this foundation did a good job at controlling my oil. I don't get super oily, but I do usually like to blot around my nose, my forehead, and my chin halfway through the day, and there was way less oil than what there normally is. But with that being said, I think my forehead and my chin did look a little bit dry, and it did cling to some pimples that I had on my chin as well. Now, the finish is really nice. It's a natural matte, so it leaves your skin just looking really fresh and glowy. At first, I only applied a light layer of powder, but when I went ahead with my powder, contour, and bronzer, it was lifting up the foundation off of my cheeks. I found I had to set the foundation in place with a lot of powder, and that took away the natural matte finish. It's definitely a foundation that I will continue to wear, but only for short periods of time. It's not a foundation I would wear to an event, a special occasion, or anything like that. More of an everyday, going to work, running errands kind of foundation. Now, I also picked up the No Filter Setting Powder. This one comes with 8.5 grams of product and retails for $9 US. This one comes in 3 shades, and I picked up the lighter shade called Translucent. Now, this is a nice powder. It feels really good under the eyes, and it's super lightweight. But the shade Translucent, it's bloody yellow. It's probably light enough for those light, medium skin tones, but for someone as fair as me, this is more like a banana powder rather than a translucent powder. I applied my foundation and then used the Colourpop concealer in the shade 04, which is quite light. It does a good job at brightening my under eyes. I then went in and set it with this powder, and all it did was make it darker. I always set my under eyes with a sponge as well, so I did that, but as I was applying the powder, it was literally picking up the foundation off of my face again. And so it was leaving this line on my face, and you could see the darker powder under my eyes and then this line of patchiness across my face. So I thought a sponge isn't the right way to go here. The next day I applied the powder with a brush, and that worked a lot better, but still the color is just too dark for an ultra fair skin girl like me. So I think that there is definitely room for Colourpop to come out with a lighter powder than this. I'll just show you a comparison of this powder compared to my Maybelline Fit Me in the shade 05. So you can see the difference in the shades and how yellow the Colourpop powder actually looks. And although I did enjoy the powder, I probably won't be using it again just because it's too dark for what I want to achieve under my eyes. Alright, let's move on to a demo, and you can see how the foundation, concealer, and powder all apply together. Okay, so as I said, I'm starting out with my Stila One Step Correct primer. Next, I'll be taking my NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer and just going over some of the bigger blemishes on my face. So clearly I've had some problems at trying to figure out how to get this foundation to work for me. So in this demo, I'm going to be showing you how I actually achieved a nice finish. I start by dotting the foundation all over and then blending it out with a kabuki brush. Again, as I said earlier, this is the way that I achieved the best coverage. So here you can see what the shade looks like on my skin. I actually think it's quite a good color match. It does look pretty light by itself, but once I apply my bronzer, blush, and everything else, I think it looks quite nice. So now I'm just going ahead and doing the other side, well, the rest of my face with the kabuki brush. And now here is a close-up of what that one layer looks like on my face. I'm going to go in with another layer, just again by dotting it on my face. And then this time I'm using my Beauty Blender. And as I said, I just had to use a really, really light hand. I never thought I was super rough with my sponge, but it was just picking up the foundation and it didn't look good. So I'm just very, very lightly pouncing this on my skin to blend it out. So here's what the two layers looks like without any powder over the top. Once I put the powder on, it still does look quite fresh, but it's obviously not as glowy as what it's looking like now. So next I'm going in with my Colourpop concealer and again, pouncing with a really, really light touch to blend this out so that I don't experience any patchiness. So once I've blended that out, I'm going to take the powder and a brush to set under my eyes and the rest of my face. And then I'll just show you a close-up of what that looks like. It definitely doesn't look as glowy, but I still really like the finish and I want to play around with some more primers, powders and concealers and see which combination that I like best. And lastly, I'm going to show you some swatches of this foundation compared to some other ones in my collection. Alright, so here are some swatches. First of all, I have the Colourpop concealer in the shade 04 and the Colourpop concealer in the shade 08. This here is the Colourpop No Filter Foundation in 05. And this here is the Fenty Pro Filter Foundation in 100. This here is the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless in 110. And then we have the Maybelline Super Stay Foundation in 102 and the Maybelline Super Stay Foundation in 110. This here is the MAC Studio Fix Fluid in NW10. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching this review and it helped you decide whether or not this foundation is going to be good for you. Make sure you leave me a comment down below with your thoughts because I would love to chat to you about it. Before we go, I just want to do my subscriber shout out and today's goes to Parch Craft Australia. Unfortunately, I don't know your name, but I always see your comments and just wanted to say thank you for the support. If you aren't already, then make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on that notification bell. Leave me a comment letting me know you did so and you could be my next subscriber shout out. I hope you're all having a lovely day and I will see you in the next video. Bye!